A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
You know, Herman, I was looking at the latest National Security Council advisory that Daniel sent over to us this morning, and it really struck a chord with me. It is not just the usual boilerplate warning about being careful in certain regions. We are seeing a shift where the advice is becoming incredibly granular and, frankly, quite sobering for anyone who travels frequently. It feels like the landscape has shifted beneath our feet while we were busy looking at our phones.
Herman Poppleberry here. Yes, Corn, I saw that too. When you have a formal government body essentially telling citizens to minimize their physical and cultural identity for safety, we have moved past simple travel tips. We are now in the realm of active signature management. It is a heavy topic, especially given the current climate on March 8, 2026. The tension involving Iran and its proxies has created a global threat landscape that is more complex than anything we have seen in decades. Daniel was asking how we balance this necessity for security with the desire to remain proud of who we are, and I think that is the central dilemma of modern travel for us. It is the tension between the soul and the shield.
It really is a paradox. On one hand, you want to be an authentic version of yourself. You want to walk through the world with your head held high, representing your culture and your history. On the other hand, in an era of high-definition surveillance, ubiquitous facial recognition, and instant global communication, being a low-profile target is becoming a technical requirement for safety. It is a conversation we have touched on in bits and pieces over the years, but I think today we need to really dive into the mechanics of it. How do you actually manage your signature without losing your soul in the process? How do you stay safe without feeling like you are erasing your own existence?
That is exactly the right way to frame it. Let us start by defining what we mean by signature management in a civilian context. Most people think of operational security, or OPSEC, as something only spies or special forces worry about. They think it involves wearing a trench coat and meeting people in dark alleys. But in reality, every time you step out of your house, you are broadcasting a signature. This includes your physical appearance, the language you speak, the apps on your phone, the brands you wear, and even the way you interact with staff at a hotel. Your signature is the sum total of the information you leak into the environment.
Right, and there is a distinction we should make here between identity concealment and signature reduction. I think people often conflate the two, and that is where the ethical discomfort comes in. Identity concealment is trying to pretend you are someone else entirely. It is the fake mustache, the forged documents, the elaborate backstory. That is difficult, stressful, and often illegal depending on the context. Signature reduction, however, is simply minimizing the data points you broadcast that would flag you as a high-value or specific origin target. It is not about lying. It is about lowering the volume.
Think of it like a radar cross-section. An airplane does not try to pretend it is a bird, it just tries to reflect as little radar energy as possible so it does not show up as a distinct blip on the screen. For a traveler, your signature is the sum of all the cues that tell an observer who you are and where you are from. In the current environment, where the National Security Council has elevated threat levels for over 150 countries, reducing that signature is not about being ashamed. It is about tactical anonymity. It is about making sure you are not the most interesting person in the room to someone with malicious intent.
It is interesting you mentioned the radar analogy. In the age of digital footprints and biometric travel requirements, is it even possible to be invisible? Every border crossing involves a digital record. Every hotel check-in involves a passport scan. We are constantly feeding the machine. If the machine already knows everything, why bother with the small stuff?
You cannot be invisible to the state, and you probably should not try to be. That usually raises more red flags than it solves. If you show up at a border with no digital history, you are going to spend a long time in a small room with no windows. The goal is to be invisible to the casual or malicious observer on the street or in the lobby. We are talking about the person sitting in the corner of the airport lounge or the scout outside a Jewish community center. To them, you want to be just another face in the crowd. This brings us to what I call the passport problem, which Daniel mentioned in his prompt.
Yeah, the passport problem is a big one. It is that moment of vulnerability. You're at a hotel in a foreign city. You've been practicing great signature reduction all day. You've been speaking English. You're wearing neutral clothing. And then you have to hand over a passport that clearly states your place of birth and citizenship. It feels like the whole charade falls apart right there. It is like the big reveal at the end of a movie, but it is happening at the front desk of a Marriott.
It can feel that way, but we have to look at the window of exposure. Most hotel clerks are just trying to get through their shift. They are not intelligence officers. However, the data they collect goes into a system that might be less secure. The pragmatic step here is managing the physical environment of that disclosure. You do not check in when the lobby is crowded with people who might overhear the conversation. You do not leave your passport sitting out on the counter while you look for your credit card. You keep the interaction professional, brief, and quiet. You can even use a passport cover that obscures the nationality until the moment you hand it over. It is about containing the information to the smallest possible circle.
That makes sense. It is about controlling the blast radius of that information. But what about the digital side of things? We talked about this back in episode 779, about how we are all walking around with high-definition sensors in our pockets. If I am trying to maintain a low profile, but my phone is constantly pinging local cell towers and broadcasting my data, am I not just sabotaging myself?
You absolutely are. Digital hygiene is perhaps the most overlooked part of travel OPSEC. If someone were to glance at your phone screen while you are on a bus or in a cafe, what do they see? If your interface is in Hebrew, or if you have apps like Wolt or Get or an Israeli banking app front and center, you have just broadcasted your origin to anyone within eyesight. Before you even leave for the airport, you should be sanitizing your devices. This is not just about privacy, it is about reducing your visual and electronic signature.
When you say sanitizing, what does that look like in practice for a regular business traveler? It sounds a bit like something out of a spy novel.
It starts with the language settings. Change your entire operating system to English. It sounds small, but it changes the entire visual profile of the device. Remove the Hebrew keyboard from your active list so it does not pop up when you are typing in public. Then, look at your apps. Any app that is specific to a certain region should be tucked away in a folder or, ideally, deleted for the duration of the trip. If you are using a navigation app, make sure your saved locations do not give away your home address or frequent haunts in Israel. You should also check your Bluetooth and Wi-Fi settings. Your phone might be broadcasting a name like Herman's iPhone, which is a signature in itself. Change it to something generic like iPhone 13 or just a string of numbers.
And what about the hardware itself? I know some people swear by burner phones, but that seems like a lot of friction for someone just going on a 3-day business trip to Europe. Is there a middle ground?
It is a trade-off. For most people, a burner device is overkill, but a secondary travel device is a great middle ground. This is a clean laptop or tablet that only has the documents and apps necessary for the trip. It does not have your entire life history on it. It does not have your logged-in social media accounts or your family photos. If it gets lost, stolen, or compromised by a malicious network, the damage is contained. Remember, we are not just worried about physical threats. We are worried about the pattern of life analysis.
Pattern of life analysis. That is a phrase that comes up a lot in intelligence briefings. How does that apply to a civilian traveler? It sounds like something they use to track high-value targets.
It is exactly that, but it is also how marketing companies track you. It is the idea that even if I do not know your name, I can figure out who you are by what you do. If you go to the same type of restaurants, visit the same types of institutions, or follow the same routine every day, you become predictable. And predictability is a massive security risk. In high-threat environments, you want to vary your routes. Do not always take the same exit from the hotel. Do not always eat at the place right next door. If you are visiting a Jewish institution that lacks professional security, as the National Security Council warns against, you need to be especially mindful of the pattern you are creating. If you show up at the same time every morning, you are making it very easy for someone to plan an interaction.
This really brings us to the psychological side of things. We talked about survival psychology in episode 891, And I think there is a real psychological toll to this level of vigilance. You are essentially living a double life, or at least a highly curated one. It can lead to a sort of imposter syndrome, or a feeling of exhaustion from constantly monitoring your own behavior. It feels like you are always on stage, and the stakes are incredibly high.
It is exhausting, Corn. There is no way around that. Maintaining a high level of situational awareness while also managing your digital and physical signatures requires a lot of cognitive load. But this is where the gray man theory becomes so useful. The goal of the gray man is not to be a secret agent. It is to be so uninteresting that the brain of an observer simply filters you out. It relies on a principle called inattentional blindness.
Inattentional blindness. I love that concept. It is the idea that we do not see things we are not looking for, even if they are right in front of us. Like that famous study with the person in the gorilla suit walking through the basketball game.
If you are dressed in a way that perfectly matches the local environment, and your behavior is calm and unremarkable, you do not trigger the threat detection mechanisms in someone else's brain. You are not the guy in the tactical pants and the expensive techwear looking around nervously. You are just another person in a pair of jeans and a neutral sweater checking their email. By being unremarkable, you actually reduce the psychological burden because you are not trying to hide, you are just trying to blend. You are not a secret, you are just background noise.
So, let us talk about the physical reality of that blending. If I am in a city like London or Paris or Athens right now, what are the tells that I should be avoiding? Beyond the obvious things like a skull cap or a Star of David necklace, what are the subtle things that give us away?
Luggage is a big one. Certain brands of backpacks or suitcases are very popular in specific regions. If you are carrying a bag that every 20-something in Tel Aviv has, you are broadcasting a signal. Another one is footwear. People often overlook shoes, but they are a huge cultural marker. Look at what the locals are wearing. If everyone is in leather shoes and you are in bright techie sneakers, you stand out. Also, pay attention to your volume. We have a tendency to be a bit louder and more animated in our speech than people in some other cultures. If you are speaking English but with a certain cadence and volume, it draws attention. Even the way you hold your coffee or wait for a bus can be a tell.
I have noticed that. It is almost like we have a different frequency of energy. And it is not just about the language, it is the hand gestures, the proximity to the person you are talking to. It all adds up to a signature. But I want to go back to something Daniel mentioned, which is the idea of being proud of your identity. Does practicing the gray man theory mean we are being dishonest, or that we are ashamed? It feels a bit like we are letting the bad guys win by hiding who we are.
Not at all. And I think this is a crucial point. Security is a set of tools, not a statement of values. When I put on a seatbelt, I am not saying I am a bad driver or that I am afraid of the road. I am acknowledging the reality of physics. When we practice signature management, we are acknowledging the reality of the current geopolitical environment. You can be deeply proud of your heritage and your home, while also recognizing that broadcasting that identity in a high-threat zone is tactically unwise. It is about staying alive and safe so that you can continue to be who you are in the places where it matters. It is about choosing the terrain of your expression.
That is a powerful distinction. It is about choosing the time and place for that expression. Now, let us move to the physical security of the trip itself, choosing where to stay and how to move. You mentioned exit velocity earlier. Can you explain that? It sounds like something out of a physics textbook.
Exit velocity is a term used to describe how quickly and easily you can remove yourself from a location if a threat develops. When you are picking a hotel, for example, a luxury high-rise might seem safe because it has a doorman, but it might have very poor exit velocity if there is only one main entrance and a slow elevator bank. I prefer hotels that have multiple points of egress and are located near major transit hubs that offer multiple directions of travel. You want to be able to leave the building and be lost in a crowd or on a train within minutes.
So, instead of looking for the most expensive or the most comfortable place, you are looking for the place that gives you the most options in a crisis. You are looking for the architecture of escape.
Precisely. And when you are in your room, you should have a go bag, or at least your essentials. Passport, cash, phone, and a portable charger in one place where you can grab them in literally 2 seconds. This is part of the architecture of resilience we discussed in episode 891. It is about reducing the friction between realizing there is a problem and taking action. You should also do a quick sweep of the floor when you arrive. Where are the stairs? Do they lead to the street or a locked courtyard? Does the window open? These are things you want to know when the hallway is full of smoke or there is a security situation in the lobby.
What about transit? I know a lot of people rely on ride-sharing apps, but those also create a digital trail and involve a stranger knowing exactly where you are going. It feels like you are trading one risk for another.
Ride sharing is a double-edged sword. On one hand, you have a GPS-tracked record of the ride, which can be a safety feature. On the other hand, the driver now has a data point on you. In high-threat environments, I actually prefer public transit or official city taxis if they are well regulated. Public transit is the ultimate gray man environment. You are one of thousands. There is no individual record of your specific journey linked to your name in real time. If you do use a rideshare, never have them drop you off or pick you up exactly at your hotel door. Pick a spot a block away near a neutral landmark like a coffee shop or a park. It breaks the direct link between your identity and your precise location.
That is a great tip. It breaks the chain of information. I want to touch on the idea of hardened versus soft targets. A lot of the current warnings are about Jewish institutions or embassies. If someone is traveling for a reason that requires them to visit these places, how do they manage that transition from the gray man on the street to the high security environment of the institution?
That transition is the most dangerous moment. It is called the fatal funnel in tactical terms, though we can use it more broadly here. It is the point where your path is predictable and your destination is known. If you are going to a community center or an embassy, do not hang out on the sidewalk out front. Do not stand there checking your phone or waiting for a friend. Move with purpose. Go from the public space into the secured space as quickly as possible. And when you leave, do not just walk out the front door and start wandering. Have your transportation ready or a clear route to the nearest crowded neutral area. You want to minimize the time you spend in that transition zone where you are most vulnerable.
It is about minimizing the window of exposure. I think that is a recurring theme here. Whether it is the hotel check-in or entering a secure building, you want to reduce the time you are a visible stationary target. You want to be a moving part of a larger system.
And let us talk about the role of technology in helping us with this. We have discussed the Cytrip method in episode 553, which is all about extracting high-protein information. Before you travel, you should be doing a deep dive into the specific threat surface of your destination. This is not just reading the news. It is looking at local forums, social media, and official advisories to understand what the specific risks are. Are there planned protests? Has there been a recent uptick in surveillance of certain areas? What is the local sentiment toward foreigners? Knowledge is the foundation of OPSEC.
And that knowledge allows you to build a threat model. I think people often get overwhelmed because they think they have to be afraid of everything all the time. But a threat model helps you focus. If the primary threat in a certain city is Iranian-backed proxies targeting specific individuals, your security posture should be different than if the primary threat is petty street crime or political unrest.
That is a vital point. You cannot defend against everything simultaneously with the same level of intensity. You have to prioritize. In the context of the National Security Council warnings we are seeing in early 2026, the priority is signature reduction to avoid being targeted for your nationality or religion. This means the gray man approach is your primary shield. It means being unremarkable is your most effective defense.
Let us move into some really practical, actionable takeaways for our listeners. If someone is heading out on a trip next week, what is the checklist they should be running through? Let us give them a step-by-step guide.
First, the digital sanitization. Change the language to English, remove regional keyboards, and hide or delete origin-specific apps. Check your device name and turn off unnecessary broadcasting like AirDrop or nearby sharing. Second, the physical profile. Audit your clothing and luggage. If you have anything with Hebrew text, even a small tag on a bag or a keychain, remove it or cover it. Look at your footwear and make sure it matches the local baseline. Third, the hotel protocol. Choose your check-in time wisely, keep your passport out of sight as much as possible, and memorize the layout of the building and the surrounding streets immediately upon arrival. Know your exit velocity.
I would add to that the communication protocol. If you are calling home or talking to family, do it in your room or in a quiet private area. Do not be the person walking through a crowded airport terminal speaking Hebrew loudly on speakerphone. It seems obvious, but you see it all the time. It is a massive signature broadcast. Also, be careful about what you post on social media in real time. Posting a photo of your hotel view while you are still staying there is a huge security lapse. Wait until you have moved to a new location or returned home before sharing those details.
And fourth, the situational awareness piece. Practice the OOD loop. Observe, orient, decide, act. When you enter a new space, take 10 seconds to observe the exits and the people. Orient yourself to the baseline of the environment. If something feels off, trust your gut and leave. Do not worry about being rude or looking silly. Your intuition is a powerful security tool that has been honed by thousands of years of evolution. It is better to be wrong and safe than right and in trouble.
I think that is a great list. And to Daniel's point about remaining proud of who we are, I think there is a way to look at this as a form of resilience. By being smart and being safe, we are ensuring that we can continue to travel, to do business, and to represent our culture in the world. We are not being silenced. We are being tactical. We are ensuring our longevity, so that we can continue to be who we are for years to come.
Well said, Corn. It is about longevity. The goal is to keep moving, keep engaging, and keep living our lives without providing an easy opportunity for those who wish us harm. It is a process, not a static state. You have to constantly adjust your posture as the environment changes. As we have seen in the last few years, especially with the AI cyber frontier we discussed in episode 713, the threats are evolving, and so must our defenses. We have to be as dynamic as the world around us.
This has been a really substantive discussion, Herman. I think it is important to provide this kind of technical depth because the headlines can often be just scary without being helpful. Understanding the why and the how of signature management makes it much more manageable. It takes the mystery out of it and replaces it with a set of skills.
I agree. It takes it out of the realm of fear and into the realm of professional practice. It is like learning any other skill, like driving or cooking. Once you understand the principles, it becomes second nature. And if you are listening and you find this kind of deep dive into security and geopolitical reality helpful, we would really appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your podcast app or on Spotify. It genuinely helps the show reach more people who might need this information. We want to build a community of informed, resilient travelers.
Yeah, it really does make a difference. We have been doing this for over 1,000 episodes now, and the community feedback is what keeps us going. You can find all of our past episodes, including the ones we referenced today, like episode 779 on wartime OPSEC and episode 891 on survival psychology, over at our website, myweirdprompts.com. There is a search bar there where you can look up any topic we have covered, from digital privacy to physical security.
And thanks again to our housemate Daniel for sending in this prompt. It is a sensitive one, but it is one that we really needed to address given everything happening in the world right now. Security is about making informed choices, and I hope this episode helps our listeners make better ones. It is about empowering people to move through the world with confidence even in uncertain times.
Definitely. We have to balance that caution with the importance of staying true to ourselves, but doing it in a way that is smart. It is a fine line to walk, but it is the one we are on. We are not hiding, we are just being strategic about how we show up.
It is about being a hard target while maintaining a soft heart for the things that matter. It is about protecting the essence of who we are by being smart about the exterior we present to the world.
That is a great way to put it. Well, I think that covers the core of what we wanted to get into today. Any final thoughts on the Gray Man before we sign off? Any last bits of wisdom for the road?
Just that being a gray man is a skill. You can practice it even when you are not in a high-threat environment. Next time you are at a coffee shop, try to see how many people you can observe without them noticing you, and see if you can identify the signatures other people are broadcasting. Look for the tells, the watch, the shoes, the way they hold their phone. It is a fascinating exercise in human psychology and situational awareness. It makes you a more observant and engaged person.
I am going to try that next time I am out. It is probably a good skill for a sloth to have anyway, though I usually just blend in by not moving. I am the ultimate grey man because people just think I am a piece of furniture.
Ha, true enough. You have the natural advantage there. You have mastered the art of being unremarkable by being completely stationary.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of My Weird Prompts. We really value your time and your engagement with these complex topics. We know it is not always easy to talk about these things, but we believe it is necessary.
Stay safe out there, stay vigilant, and we will talk to you in the next one. This has been My Weird Prompts. Remember, security is a journey, not a destination.
See you next time. Thanks for listening. We will be back soon with another deep dive into whatever weird and wonderful prompts come our way. You can find us on Spotify and at myweirdprompts.com. Take care of yourselves and each other.
This episode was generated using Gemini Flash 3. Text-to-speech engine was Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our show, My Weird Prompts, where our thoughts go from slow takes to facts on cue. We change